Imagine the man whose strikes could outrun the eye, whose movements were studied and feared across continents, standing in a moment where the greatest challenge was choosing inaction over action. This was a day unlike any other in Bruce Lee's life, a day when his mastery of martial arts collided with his mastery of judgment. The fight that could have defined him never happened because he realized that strength is not always proven through confrontation. Instead, true mastery sometimes reveals itself in restraint, in understanding, and in the quiet wisdom to step back when others expect forward motion. On this day, Bruce Lee learned a lesson that would remain private, a moment that shaped his philosophy more than any victory in the ring could. This is the untold story of the day Bruce Lee discovered that fighting, as extraordinary as his skill was not always the answer. It is a lesson in perception, awareness, and the subtle power of restraint that few have ever truly understood. Bruce Lee understood early in his life that true mastery extended far beyond physical skill or lightning-fast strikes. He realized that not every challenge or confrontation required a response, and that sometimes the wisest decision was to do nothing at all. This insight was not born out of fear or hesitation, but out of a deep understanding of human behavior and situational dynamics. In every environment he entered, whether a crowded Hong Kong alley, a bustling dojo, or a crowded Hollywood set, Bruce Lee trained himself to observe, analyze, and understand before ever committing to action. His eyes, his posture, and even the subtle tension in his opponent's movements were constantly being read, measured, and interpreted. This awareness was more than just vigilance. It was a conscious practice of evaluating risk and opportunity at every moment. He noticed that many fights or confrontations people considered unavoidable were actually the result of misunderstanding, ego, or impulse. By stepping back and observing carefully, Bruce Lee could identify which situations truly required engagement and which were merely distractions, challenges that served no purpose other than to drain energy or escalate unnecessary conflict. In a world obsessed with proving oneself through action, Bruce Lee's approach was counterintuitive. He understood that not every test is worth taking, and not every display of skill was needed to assert respect or mastery. This approach required a combination of patience, perception, and self-control that far outweighed raw power. Awareness for Bruce Lee was not passive. It was an active, deliberate, and ongoing process that allowed him to navigate complex social and physical environments with precision. By observing subtle shifts in body language, tone, and situational context, he could anticipate potential aggression before it fully materialized. For example, a slight tightening of the shoulders, a twitch of the foot, or a shift in gaze could indicate intent or hesitation. By noticing these small but significant cues, Bruce Lee could choose whether to engage, deflect, or simply remove himself from the situation entirely. This ability to read the room, the opponent, and the energy of a moment became a critical tool in his philosophy, demonstrating that the most effective way to conserve strength is often through careful observation rather than unnecessary action. This level of awareness also extended beyond physical safety into the emotional and psychological realms. Bruce Lee understood that conflicts often escalated not simply because of physical ability, but because of unchecked emotions, pride, or societal expectations. By cultivating the habit of pausing, assessing, and analyzing, he could avoid unnecessary entanglements that others would rush into blindly. Awareness allowed him to act strategically rather than react impulsively, transforming potential chaos into controlled and purposeful outcomes. In essence, he recognized that energy, both physical and mental, is a finite resource, and conserving it through discernment was a form of mastery in itself. Awareness was not limited to observing external threats. It was equally about understanding oneself. Bruce Lee constantly reflected on his own impulses, emotions, and potential reactions. He studied how his mind and body responded under stress, under provocation, and in unexpected scenarios. This self-awareness allowed him to anticipate his own tendencies and make deliberate choices rather than succumbing to instinctual aggression. It was this combination of external observation and internal reflection that made his mastery so profound. By understanding both the environment and himself, he could navigate situations in ways that minimized unnecessary conflict and maximized outcomes with minimal risk. In practice, this meant that Bruce Lee often avoided physical confrontation entirely, not out of fear, but out of strategic insight. In moments where others would have jumped to prove themselves or defend honor, He could choose to walk away, diffuse tension, or find a solution that did not involve violence. To the untrained eye, this might have seemed like restraint or avoidance, but in reality, it required far more skill and courage than most understood. True power, Bruce Lee showed, is knowing when action is necessary and when inaction is the wiser path. This principle became a cornerstone of his philosophy, influencing not only his martial arts training, but also his approach to teaching, filmmaking, and daily life. Awareness is what allowed Bruce Lee to preserve both his life and his energy. By observing, understanding, and choosing carefully, he could conserve his strength for situations that truly demanded it, rather than squandering it on avoidable disputes or ego-driven challenges. Awareness became a tool for efficiency, safety, and strategic thinking, showing that sometimes the most profound demonstration of mastery is the decision not to act when action is not required. This lesson extends far beyond martial arts, offering a universal truth applicable to relationships, professional challenges, and personal growth. Knowing when to step back is often as powerful as knowing how to strike. Bruce Lee's philosophy teaches us that awareness is an active, deliberate practice that requires patience, discipline, and perception. It is not something that happens by chance or through simple observation. It must be cultivated intentionally by training the mind to notice details, by questioning assumptions, and by constantly reflecting on outcomes. Those who practice true awareness understand that the world is full of potential conflicts, but they also recognize that only a small portion of these conflicts are worth engaging. The rest are distractions, opportunities to test patience, or lessons in restraint. Bruce Lee's lesson on awareness reminds us that the most powerful actions are often those that never occur. By carefully observing his surroundings, assessing the intentions of others, and understanding himself, he could avoid unnecessary conflict, preserve energy, and maintain control over outcomes. Awareness is not merely about survival. It is about strategic mastery, the ability to navigate life with precision, insight, and discretion. Bruce Lee's approach demonstrates that the greatest victories are not always measured in battles won, but in battles wisely avoided, proving that observation, reflection, and understanding are the ultimate forms of strength. Mastery is often misunderstood as the ability to act, to strike with precision, speed, and force. Many people equate skill with relentless action, assuming that the more you do, the more capable you are. Bruce Lee, however, understood that the true essence of mastery extends far beyond what is visible or measurable. It is not merely the ability to move, to fight, or to demonstrate technical prowess, but the wisdom to recognize when action is unnecessary, when restraint holds more power than motion. In life and in martial arts, the ability to pause, to step back, and to refrain from reacting impulsively often determines the outcome more than the most well-executed technique ever could. Bruce Lee's understanding of this principle was profound, and it was displayed countless times in moments that required not just skill but judgment, patience, and clarity of thought. The ability to act is common because almost anyone can respond to stimuli, adrenaline, or provocation. People are wired to react. Instinct often drives them forward before reason catches up. Acting feels natural, and in a world that often rewards aggression, decisive movement is celebrated. Yet Bruce Lee's true mastery lay in the ability to resist the urge to act, to maintain control over instinct, and to make a deliberate choice about when to engage and when to withhold. This is far more difficult than it appears, because restraint requires both mental discipline and emotional intelligence. It demands that one assess potential consequences, understand the motivations of others, and measure the environment before committing to action. Unlike action, which is tangible and easy to evaluate, restraint is invisible, yet its impact is profound. To refrain from action is not an act of fear or weakness. It is a demonstration of strength on a higher plane. Bruce Lee's decision to pause, to avoid unnecessary conflict, and to maintain composure in the face of challenge reflects an inner confidence that few can comprehend. Confidence does not demand proof or exhibition. It is silent and unwavering. In choosing not to strike when provoked, Bruce Lee demonstrated a mastery that goes beyond technique, beyond physicality, and into the realm of mental and philosophical strength. It is a level of understanding that allows a person to recognize that some battles are not worth fighting, that not every challenge must be met head-on, and that the greatest victories sometimes occur without action at all. This form of mastery also requires emotional control. Many individuals are highly skilled, yet their abilities are compromised by anger, pride, or fear. Bruce Lee recognized that unbridled emotion can cloud judgment and lead to actions with irreversible consequences. By practicing restraint, he showed that true strength is measured not by the intensity of action, but by the ability to remain calm, composed, and deliberate, even in high-pressure situations. His discipline allowed him to respond only when necessary, and to act in ways that were intentional rather than reactionary. Every moment of restraint was a conscious exercise of power, revealing a deeper understanding of self and circumstance. Bruce Lee's mastery of restraint also extended into the psychological aspect of conflict. By not acting immediately, he often de-escalated potential threats without ever needing to use force. People around him were often influenced by his calm presence and measured behavior, which communicated power and control more effectively than any strike could. The decision to pause created space for reflection, observation, and insight. In that space, Bruce Lee could read intentions, evaluate the best course of action, and maintain dominance without overt demonstration of aggression. This is an often overlooked lesson in martial arts. The most profound control is exercised when one chooses inaction strategically rather than reacting impulsively. Knowing when to stop is a form of mental refinement that develops over years of practice, experience, and self-awareness. Bruce Lee spent countless hours observing not just physical techniques, but human behavior, anticipating patterns, and studying cause and effect. He understood that restraint is cultivated through repeated practice and reflection, and that mastery is not simply performing perfectly, but choosing to refrain perfectly. It is the difference between skill and wisdom, between doing everything possible and doing only what is necessary. In everyday life, this lesson translates into recognizing that not every challenge requires a direct response. In martial arts, as in life, there are times when stepping back, listening, or waiting allows for a better outcome than immediate confrontation. Bruce Lee's ability to apply this principle consistently demonstrates that mastery is as much about knowing when not to act as it is about knowing how to act. This wisdom allows for efficiency, safety, and strategic advantage, while also preserving one's energy, focus, and clarity of purpose. Bruce Lee's demonstration of restraint teaches a universal principle. Action alone does not signify power, but disciplined, deliberate choice does. The courage to withhold, the patience to wait, and the insight to recognize when movement is unnecessary represent the pinnacle of mastery. In this, Bruce Lee exemplified the profound truth that some of the most powerful moments in life and martial arts are invisible to the eye, uncelebrated by the crowd, and yet more impactful than any public victory. Restraint, as Bruce Lee showed, is not a limitation but a demonstration of control, intelligence, and higher understanding. Every time he chose not to engage unnecessarily, he reinforced a philosophy that extends beyond martial arts into every aspect of life. Mastery is measured not by the number of fights won or techniques executed, but by the wisdom to act only when it truly matters, making the choice to stop a signature of true power, discipline, and enlightenment. Bruce Lee's extraordinary physical abilities were evident to anyone who watched him move. His speed, precision, and raw power were unparalleled, earning him legendary status in martial arts and popular culture alike. Yet, despite these unmatched skills, Bruce Lee understood a fundamental truth that separated true mastery from mere physical dominance. Real strength transcends the body. It is not defined solely by the force one can generate, the number of techniques one can execute, or the victories one can achieve in combat. Physical ability, while impressive, is only one facet of what it means to be strong. The deeper, more enduring forms of strength lie in the mind, in judgment, in timing, and in the ability to maintain composure under pressure. Bruce Lee recognized that relying purely on brute force can often be counterproductive. Raw physical power, without insight or awareness, can escalate situations unnecessarily, transforming potential resolutions into conflicts that spiral out of control. He saw that many people, when faced with challenge or provocation, instinctively react with aggression, believing that dominance is proven through strength alone. In contrast, Bruce Lee approached conflict with a different mindset. Strength was a tool, not a spectacle. It was meant to be applied judiciously, precisely, and only when necessary. The most powerful use of his physical prowess was often in its restraint, in knowing when to hold back and allow intellect and observation to guide action. This understanding also meant that mental clarity often outweighed muscular capability. Bruce Lee spent countless hours refining his mind as much as his body, studying psychology, philosophy, and human behavior. He knew that the most dangerous moments in life are not those that can be predicted or physically controlled, but those that arise unexpectedly, requiring judgment and composure. By valuing mental acuity over brute strength, he ensured that every potential confrontation could be approached strategically. He could anticipate reactions, identify opportunities to diffuse tension, and navigate situations safely and effectively. This is the essence of strength, the ability to influence outcomes without unnecessary exertion of force, to achieve results with precision rather than power alone. Physical ability can intimidate, but it cannot always control circumstances. Bruce Lee's philosophy emphasized that true strength lies in understanding the environment, reading intentions, and timing responses with accuracy. A punch thrown too early, a kick delivered without thought, or a reaction driven by emotion can escalate danger rather than neutralize it. In his approach, every movement, whether executed or withheld, carried intention. His body was not simply an instrument of force, it was a tool for communication, observation, and calculated action. Even when he did not strike, his presence and awareness conveyed power, demonstrating that strength is as much psychological as it is physical. Bruce Lee recognized that physical dominance is temporary, but mental mastery endures. Muscles fatigue, speed diminishes with age, and physical capability can be challenged by opponents of equal or greater size. By contrast, the mind can continue to adapt, learn, and anticipate indefinitely. Bruce Lee cultivated this mental strength through study, reflection, and relentless practice. He understood that the ability to remain calm, think clearly, and act decisively under pressure provides a far greater advantage than raw physicality alone. It allows one to manage conflict, maintain personal safety, and navigate life with confidence, even when circumstances are unpredictable or dangerous. This principle also extends beyond martial arts. Strength in life is not measured solely by achievements, possessions, or external displays of capability. It is measured by one's ability to respond appropriately to challenges, to act with wisdom rather than impulse, and to maintain composure when confronted with adversity. Bruce Lee's approach to strength embodies this philosophy. Mastery of the body is incomplete without mastery of the mind. By prioritizing judgment, timing, and mental clarity, he demonstrated that true power is intentional, strategic, and enduring. Bruce Lee's emphasis on mental strength did not diminish the importance of physical ability, rather it complemented it. A skilled fighter without insight may strike effectively, but without awareness, the result is often wasted energy or unintended consequences. Conversely, a mind trained to perceive, anticipate, and adapt can turn minimal physical effort into maximum effect. Bruce Lee's actions reflected this balance. He trained his body to perform at peak levels while simultaneously cultivating a mind capable of controlling not only his movements, but the entire dynamics of the environment. This synergy between body and mind created a form of strength that was not only effective in combat but applicable in every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional challenges. In every interaction, Bruce Lee applied this principle with precision. He did not seek to dominate through sheer physical presence. He sought to understand, to analyze, and to respond appropriately. Whether facing larger opponents, unpredictable situations, or social pressures, his strength manifested not in the force he could exert but in the control he maintained, the decisions he made, and the foresight he exercised. This kind of strength is enduring because it is adaptable, intelligent, and guided by purpose. It is a strength that can solve problems without creating new ones and that commands respect without resorting to intimidation. Bruce Lee's philosophy teaches that true strength is holistic. Physical ability is essential, but it is only one component. Mental clarity, emotional control, timing, judgment, and the capacity to choose restraint elevate raw skill into mastery. Strength that is guided by wisdom, that operates in harmony with awareness and understanding, becomes a tool for both safety and effectiveness. Bruce Lee's approach reminds us that power is not about exertion or display. It is about strategic, conscious, and deliberate application, where the mind directs the body with insight rather than impulse. By integrating physical capability with mental acuity, Bruce Lee demonstrated that mastery transcends what is visible. Observers may marvel at his speed, power, or technique, but the underlying strength that defined him was his mind's ability to govern action, maintain control, and navigate complex situations with precision. This lesson is timeless. Those who cultivate strength in both body and mind are not only capable of handling challenges, they are capable of shaping outcomes in ways that brute force alone could never achieve. In the heat of conflict, true character is revealed far more clearly than skill ever could. Bruce Lee understood that strength and technique alone do not define a person. It is the decisions made under pressure that expose the essence of one's character. Every action, hesitation, or choice in a tense moment reflects deeply held values, priorities, and principles. When faced with potential confrontation, the decision to engage or withdraw is rarely dictated solely by the ability to fight. Instead, it is shaped by an internal compass of judgment, wisdom, and ethical understanding. In this particular moment, Bruce Lee's choice to step away from confrontation was not a reflection of fear or inadequacy, but a deliberate exercise of self-awareness and moral clarity. By deciding to refrain from acting, he demonstrated that mastery is as much about restraint and discernment as it is about physical prowess. Bruce Lee's decision-making process in these high-stakes situations was rooted in a profound understanding of consequence. He recognized that every action carries a ripple effect, often extending far beyond the immediate moment. A strike, a retaliatory move, or an impulsive reaction could escalate tension unnecessarily, creating a cycle of conflict that was avoidable. By choosing to step aside or de-escalate, he exercised control not only over himself but over the situation as a whole. This level of judgment highlights a form of strength that transcends the visible and measurable. While onlookers might admire speed, power, or skill, the ability to make ethically sound decisions under pressure represents a deeper, more enduring form of mastery. Bruce Lee's character was thus tested not through exhibition of skill, but through the choices he made when no audience was watching and no accolades would follow. What makes this moment even more compelling is the subtlety of its impact. Decisions that reveal character are rarely dramatic or spectacular. They are often quiet, deliberate, and almost invisible. Bruce Lee's withdrawal from unnecessary confrontation demonstrated courage in its own right. It takes tremendous inner strength to resist instinctive responses and to prioritize ethical judgment over ego-driven action. In choosing to step back, he showed that courage is not defined by the ability to engage, but by the wisdom to know when to refrain. This principle is universally applicable, whether in martial arts, personal relationships, or professional challenges. The character of an individual is measured by how thoughtfully and responsibly they navigate situations that demand decisions. Bruce Lee's restraint and ethical consideration illustrate an important lesson about long-term mastery. Technical skill can impress in the short term, but character sustains reputation, trust, and influence over a lifetime. By acting in accordance with his principles, he safeguarded not just his physical well-being, but also his integrity and the respect of those around him. True mastery, therefore, extends beyond the capacity to perform. It encompasses the ability to act with discernment, empathy, and foresight, even when doing so may not yield immediate recognition or acclaim. Bruce Lee's choices reveal that strength is incomplete without character, and skill is hollow if divorced from moral judgment. The decision to prioritize ethical considerations over immediate advantage also demonstrates emotional intelligence, a cornerstone of Bruce Lee's philosophy. Emotional intelligence involves recognizing and regulating one's own emotions, as well as understanding the emotions of others. In moments of tension, many individuals react reflexively, driven by anger, pride, or fear. Bruce Lee, however, evaluated situations with a calm and measured perspective, understanding the broader implications of his actions. By choosing restraint, he balanced instinct with reason and strength with conscience. This equilibrium allowed him to maintain authority and presence without resorting to violence, showcasing a form of leadership grounded in ethical wisdom rather than intimidation. This principle also challenges common assumptions about what it means to be powerful. Society often equates power with dominance, aggression, or the ability to compel through force. Bruce Lee's approach flips this notion on its head, demonstrating that the most profound expression of power is often invisible. The ability to make deliberate, morally guided choices under pressure, especially when one possesses the capability to act otherwise, defines the essence of mastery. His decision to step away from confrontation highlighted a strength of character that was stronger than any physical blow, proving that integrity, patience, and wisdom are as formidable as martial skill. Bruce Lee's actions serve as a reminder that ethical decisions are integral to personal development. Mastery of any discipline is incomplete without the cultivation of moral clarity. One can train endlessly in technique, speed, or power, but without an internal compass guiding action, skill alone can lead to reckless behavior, unnecessary conflict, and long-term consequences. By demonstrating discernment in the face of provocation, Bruce Lee reinforced the principle that character shapes the ultimate effectiveness of one's abilities. In other words, skill without virtue is limited, but virtue amplifies the value of skill exponentially. The ability to make such decisions is not innate. It is honed through experience, reflection, and continuous self-awareness. Bruce Lee's life was a testament to this ongoing process. He constantly evaluated his responses, considered the consequences of his actions, and integrated lessons learned from each encounter. In the context of this specific moment, his choice to exercise restraint underlines that true character is cultivated over time, refined through repeated tests of judgment, and expressed consistently under pressure. Every act of ethical decision-making reinforced the philosophy that mastery is as much about who you are as what you can do. The lesson extends beyond martial arts into every facet of life. In professional environments, personal relationships, or moments of public scrutiny, individuals are constantly tested. The decisions they make, whether to escalate conflict, seek understanding, or step back, shape their reputation, influence, and legacy. Bruce Lee's demonstration in this scenario illustrates that mastery is inseparable from character. The ability to act ethically under pressure ensures that skill is meaningful, impactful, and respected. It is a reminder that true influence is wielded not through force, but through principled, thoughtful choices. Bruce Lee's approach also reinforces the importance of self-control and reflection. Decisions made in haste, without consideration, can compromise integrity and invite unintended consequences. By pausing, evaluating, and choosing the course of action aligned with his values, he exercised self-mastery at the highest level. This practice of intentional decision-making is what separates temporary proficiency from enduring mastery. It is a blueprint for how individuals can navigate life's challenges with composure, insight, and moral fortitude, transforming potential conflict into opportunity for growth and understanding. The decision to step away from confrontation was more than a tactical choice. It was a profound expression of character. Bruce Lee demonstrated that the essence of mastery lies not only in what you can do physically, but in who you are under pressure, how you weigh consequences, and the ethical principles that guide your actions. This moment reinforces the timeless lesson that character and skill are inseparable. Without sound judgment and moral integrity, even the greatest abilities risk being misapplied. Bruce Lee's actions remind us that true strength is measured not by dominance or victories, but by the courage to make the right decision, even when it requires restraint. In a world where every moment seems destined for documentation, Bruce Lee's choice to keep this encounter private stands as a remarkable testament to the power of silence. While many might feel compelled to recount every detail, boast about victories, or transform experiences into stories that entertain others, Bruce Lee understood that not all lessons are meant to be shared publicly. Some truths, when exposed to external interpretation, risk being distorted, exaggerated, or misrepresented. By refraining from narrating this encounter, he preserved its original essence, allowing the lesson to remain pure, undiluted by the biases, assumptions, or excitement of others. Silence, in this context, was not passive. It was an active strategy to maintain clarity and integrity, a way of honoring the moment for what it truly represented. When people share experiences, even with the best intentions, details can shift. A slight embellishment, a misremembered action, or an attempt to dramatize an event can transform reality into myth. Bruce Lee recognized this dynamic and consciously chose to avoid it. He understood that true understanding does not always require validation from others, nor does it depend on recognition or acclaim. By keeping the encounter private, he allowed himself to process the moment internally, to reflect on his actions, and to extract lessons without the interference of public opinion. In this way, silence became a tool for intellectual and emotional refinement, a means of ensuring that the wisdom gained was authentic, personal, and applicable in the most meaningful way. Silence also facilitated deeper introspection. In solitude, without the pressure of external judgment, Bruce Lee could analyze the nuances of the encounter, the subtleties of human behavior, the importance of timing, the impact of restraint, and the delicate balance between action and inaction. This private reflection allowed him to internalize lessons that might have been lost or diluted if the moment had been shared prematurely. Each subtle movement, each choice, and each response could be examined, understood, and incorporated into his evolving philosophy without distortion. The quiet of privacy nurtured a clarity that public discourse often obstructs, demonstrating that some of the most profound insights emerge not through verbalization, but through contemplation. Keeping this moment private reinforced the idea that true mastery is not performative. In a culture fascinated with display and recognition, it can be tempting to equate sharing experiences with validation of skill or insight. Bruce Lee, however, demonstrated that the value of a lesson is not measured by how widely it is witnessed, but by how deeply it is understood and applied. By refusing to broadcast this encounter, he prioritized substance over spectacle. The lesson remained potent because it was preserved in its original form, untouched by sensationalism or public expectation. Silence, therefore, became a deliberate and powerful act of self-discipline, aligning perfectly with the broader philosophy that mastery encompasses both action and restraint. Another crucial aspect of this silence is the protection it afforded against misinterpretation. When events are shared, observers often project their own beliefs, biases, and assumptions onto the narrative, inadvertently creating distortions. Bruce Lee anticipated this risk and chose to prevent it by holding the knowledge privately, ensuring that the integrity of the encounter remained intact. In doing so, he demonstrated a profound understanding of human psychology, that stories once released into the world take on a life of their own, shaped by those who witness or hear them. By maintaining silence, he controlled not the perception of others, but the preservation of truth itself. Silence also allowed for gradual integration of insight into his personal philosophy. By reflecting privately, Bruce Lee could assess how the encounter aligned with his existing beliefs and where it challenged or expanded them. Each moment of contemplation became a building block for deeper understanding, shaping his approach to conflict, self-discipline, and the art of living. The encounter did not need to be validated by others to be meaningful. Its significance was fully realized through the careful internal assimilation of its lessons. This method of learning, grounded in quiet reflection, highlights a timeless principle that wisdom often grows most profoundly when experienced and processed in solitude, free from external interference or the desire for approval. Maintaining silence served as a form of strategic control. In martial arts and life alike, information is power. Revealing every action, decision, or encounter removes the element of subtlety and advantage. Bruce Lee's restraint in sharing this particular encounter ensured that the lesson remained personal, precise, and potent, rather than being diluted by popular narrative or sensationalized accounts. Silence became an extension of his mastery, a way of asserting authority over knowledge, timing, and perception, demonstrating that wisdom often requires discretion as much as capability. The act of keeping this moment private also exemplifies a deeper philosophical principle that experience often carries more value internally than externally. Moments that challenge, teach, or refine us are inherently transformative, even if unseen by others. Bruce Lee understood that public acknowledgement is not necessary for growth. The encounter's significance was measured by the clarity it brought to his mind, the refinement it provided to his philosophy, and the ways it shaped his understanding of restraint, decision-making, and human behavior. This perspective underscores a fundamental truth. Growth is an internal journey, and some lessons retain their power only when allowed to remain in quiet reflection. Silence preserves clarity because it eliminates noise, the distractions of opinion, commentary, and reinterpretation that can dilute meaning. Bruce Lee's choice ensured that the encounter was experienced and understood on his terms, allowing him to retain the full integrity of the lesson. By not sharing the event, he created a space in which reflection, awareness, and contemplation could thrive uninterrupted. This deliberate quiet is not a sign of secrecy or fear, but of discernment, showing a level of intellectual and emotional sophistication that few achieve. In addition, the preservation of clarity through silence reinforces the idea that some lessons are more about internal evolution than external demonstration. Bruce Lee's focus was always on personal growth, refining skill, judgment, and philosophy, not on recognition or fame. By keeping the encounter private, he ensured that the lesson impacted him where it mattered most, in his mind, his approach to life, and his evolving understanding of mastery. This principle extends beyond martial arts. The most meaningful insights in life are often those cultivated in quiet reflection, away from the gaze and judgment of others. Silence allows for reflection without pressure. When events are public, the expectation to explain, justify, or perform can distort the meaning of experience. Bruce Lee's discretion removed these external pressures, allowing him to analyze the encounter honestly without concern for audience interpretation. The lesson could unfold naturally, revealing nuances that might have been overlooked if shared prematurely or sensationalized. This approach highlights the value of patience, introspection, and thoughtful engagement with life's challenges. By keeping the encounter private, Bruce Lee also modeled a form of discipline and self-restraint. Mastery is not solely about what one can do, but about what one chooses not to do. By withholding public commentary, he exercised control over the narrative, preserving the essence of the lesson while avoiding unnecessary dramatization. This act of restraint reinforced the idea that wisdom often manifests in what is withheld as much as in what is expressed, teaching viewers and practitioners alike that true understanding thrives in quiet observation and internalization. Silence preserved the subtlety of the moment as well. Not all lessons are dramatic or obvious to others, and some require time and personal reflection to fully comprehend. Bruce Lee recognized that the value of insight is amplified when it is not diluted by audience interpretation, allowing the experience to impact him deeply, authentically, and durably. By refraining from sharing, he maintained the moment's original meaning, ensuring that its lessons remained accessible only to those willing to seek understanding rather than spectacle. Silence preserved clarity by aligning action with philosophy. Bruce Lee consistently emphasized that martial arts were not only physical but also deeply philosophical. By keeping certain encounters private, he embodied the principle that wisdom and strength are best preserved when filtered through reflection and discretion. The encounter, though unseen by others, became a cornerstone of personal growth and philosophical development, reinforcing that clarity is often a product of deliberate choice rather than public proclamation. Bruce Lee's decision to remain silent about this encounter demonstrates the extraordinary power of discretion. Silence, in this context, was not avoidance. It was an active preservation of truth, clarity, and insight. By choosing not to narrate, exaggerate, or mythologize the moment, he ensured that the lesson remained intact, internalized, and fully accessible to himself for reflection and growth. It is a timeless reminder that sometimes the most profound understanding arises not from what is spoken but from what is intentionally kept quiet, allowing clarity, wisdom, and mastery to endure undisturbed. In a culture that often equates bravery with visible action, Bruce Lee's approach challenges the conventional understanding of courage. Most people instinctively associate courage with striking, confrontation, or physical assertion, believing that bravery is proven by what you can do in the moment of danger. Bruce Lee, however, demonstrated that the truest measure of courage lies not in the swiftness of your strike, but in the ability to choose in action when it serves wisdom, safety, and long-term judgment. Walking away, resisting the urge to retaliate, and maintaining composure requires a profound inner strength that is far less obvious than physical feats, yet infinitely more challenging to cultivate. The decision to exercise restraint in the face of potential conflict is not passive. It is a conscious, deliberate act that reflects deep understanding of both oneself and the surrounding environment. Bruce Lee understood that impulsive reactions, even when physically justified, could escalate situations unnecessarily or create consequences that are impossible to undo. By pausing and assessing the moment, he demonstrated that courage is not simply the ability to engage, but the ability to discern when engagement is unnecessary or counterproductive. This requires emotional intelligence, self-control, and confidence in one's own capacity to act if required, qualities that are often more difficult to master than any physical technique. Restraint also demands confronting the fear and discomfort that naturally arise when one suppresses instinctive responses. Choosing not to act, particularly in situations where immediate action might be socially or emotionally rewarded, is inherently uncomfortable. Bruce Lee's choice to exercise restraint illustrates that true courage often involves facing one's own impulses, the pressure of expectation, and the internal struggle between desire and discipline. It is in these moments of internal conflict where the mind must assert control over the body that real bravery is revealed. Courage measured through restraint extends beyond the individual to influence interactions with others. By choosing not to escalate a potential confrontation, Bruce Lee created an environment where conflict could be avoided without harm. This form of courage protects not only oneself but also those around, demonstrating that the wisdom to withhold action can prevent unnecessary suffering. In this way, restraint is a form of strategic power, reflecting mastery over both personal impulses and the dynamics of human behavior. It is the quiet assertion of control rather than the loud display of force. The choice to refrain from action also communicates confidence in one's abilities. When a person is unsure or insecure, the tendency is often to act immediately to assert dominance or prove strength. Bruce Lee, however, exhibited courage rooted in certainty, a deep trust in his own skill, judgment, and understanding. This allowed him to evaluate the situation calmly and objectively, choosing restraint because he knew that action was not required at that moment. Courage, therefore, is inseparable from self-awareness. It is the interplay between knowledge, skill, and the patience to wait for the right moment. Restraint highlights a sophisticated understanding of the long-term consequences of action. Physical confrontations rarely exist in isolation. Every choice has ripple effects that can extend far beyond the immediate moment. By exercising restraint, Bruce Lee demonstrated a courage that is forward-thinking, capable of balancing immediate instincts with future outcomes. This form of bravery is rare because it requires an individual to delay gratification, resist social pressures, and prioritize thoughtful judgment over instinctive reactions. In doing so, he revealed that courage is as much about foresight and discipline as it is about immediate action. Restraint also reinforces the philosophical dimension of martial arts. Bruce Lee's practice was not solely about defeating opponents, it was about cultivating a deep understanding of life, human nature, and self-mastery. The courage to walk away, to exercise restraint, reflects the integration of martial skill with ethical and philosophical awareness. It shows that true strength is measured not by the ability to dominate others, but by the ability to control oneself, act intentionally, and prioritize wisdom over impulsivity. The act of restraint demonstrates humility, another critical component of courage. By choosing not to act, Bruce Lee acknowledged that not every challenge required his intervention, and that not all moments demanded recognition or public display of skill. This humility does not indicate weakness, rather it shows a profound confidence in his own abilities and a recognition of the broader context in which action occurs. Courage in this sense is intertwined with self-respect, respect for others, and the discernment to know when silence or inaction carries more power than any strike. Restraint as courage is also a lesson in emotional regulation. Many individuals equate emotional intensity with courage, believing that a strong response demonstrates bravery. Bruce Lee, however, exhibited emotional intelligence by controlling instinctive reactions. This emotional mastery allowed him to act judiciously rather than react impulsively, showing that true courage often manifests not through physical deeds but through mental discipline, patience, and composure under pressure. It requires far more bravery to remain calm and measured than to succumb to the adrenaline-fueled urge to engage. Bruce Lee's demonstration of courage through restraint underscores the universality of the lesson. It is applicable not only to martial arts or physical confrontations, but also to every aspect of life, professional, personal, and interpersonal. The ability to pause, reflect, and choose non-action when appropriate can prevent conflict, preserve relationships, and allow for better decision-making. Courage, therefore, is not a measure of how often one strikes or wins battles, but of how wisely one navigates the challenges of life, balancing action and restraint with integrity and foresight. In the world of martial arts, public victories often dominate the narrative. Champions are celebrated, fights are recorded, and the most dramatic moments are immortalized in media and memory. Yet, Bruce Lee's philosophy teaches us that true legacy is rarely forged in spectacle. It is crafted in the choices that go unseen, in the silent decisions that define character, and in the moments where action is deliberately withheld. The fight he chose not to engage in exemplifies this principle perfectly. To the casual observer, nothing happened. There was no crowd cheering, no camera capturing the struggle, and no headline proclaiming triumph. Yet for Bruce Lee, the significance of that encounter was immense. It shaped his understanding of martial arts, human behavior, and the ethical application of skill in ways that public victories could not. Legacy in this sense is not a measure of external validation but of internal alignment with principles and values. Bruce Lee understood that reacting impulsively to every challenge, even when he could easily dominate, would have undermined a deeper philosophy he was developing. Choosing restraint over action in that moment allowed him to maintain clarity, protect integrity, and cultivate wisdom. Each unshared choice reinforced the lessons he carried forward into training, teaching, and personal growth. These unseen decisions accumulate over time, forming a foundation for a legacy that is felt as much in influence and thought as in physical accomplishments. One of the profound lessons embedded in Bruce Lee's approach is that visibility does not equate to importance. Society often rewards spectacle, flashy techniques, undefeated records, dramatic showdowns, but the most impactful moments are often invisible. The decisions that test character without attracting attention reflect the depth of mastery. When Bruce Lee refrained from engaging unnecessarily, he demonstrated foresight, understanding that immediate gratification through combat might compromise long-term growth, relationships, and his own ethical standards. The quiet choice to withhold action is paradoxically a more powerful testament to skill and self-control than any celebrated fight ever could be. Legacy built in unseen choices also emphasizes the responsibility that comes with power. Bruce Lee possessed the ability to act decisively, to dominate, and to control outcomes physically. Yet he recognized that every action carries consequences beyond the immediate moment. By exercising discretion, he protected not only himself but also those around him from unnecessary harm. His choices demonstrate that true mastery is inseparable from responsibility, and that the impact of a legacy is determined by how wisely power is applied, not merely how often it is demonstrated. In this way, the unseen moments reveal a level of ethical and intellectual sophistication that public achievements alone cannot convey. The concept of unseen choices reinforces the intimacy between action and intention. A public fight may display skill, but it does not always reflect the fighter's understanding, restraint, or philosophical insight. Bruce Lee's decision not to engage was rooted in careful assessment of intent, environment, and outcome. It required a sophisticated balance of confidence, patience, and ethical consideration. Legacy, therefore, is measured not just by the results of our actions, but by the deliberate thoughtfulness behind moments where we consciously choose inaction. It is these thoughtful interventions or non-interventions that often ripple outward, influencing others subtly yet profoundly. This principle also expands the idea of influence beyond the physical. Bruce Lee's teachings, philosophy, and films have inspired millions, but the unseen moments of discipline, self-restraint, and ethical judgment form the backbone of that influence. Each quiet choice added layers to his persona, as not only a martial artist, but as a thinker, innovator, and teacher. People may celebrate the spectacular fights, but it is the invisible decisions that truly define the depth and durability of his legacy. Legacy is the sum of both visible achievements and invisible choices, where restraint often speaks louder than action. The unseen choices illustrate mastery over ego and desire for recognition. Many individuals are tempted to act publicly to prove strength, secure reputation, or gain admiration. Bruce Lee's restraint shows a different form of courage, one that prioritizes principle over perception. By not turning every challenge into a public demonstration, he protected the purity of the lesson, the clarity of his philosophy, and the authenticity of his personal growth. Legacy, in this way, is about cultivating a life guided by wisdom and intention, rather than by external validation or fleeting fame. The unseen choices highlight the subtle power of timing. Mastery is not only about executing action at the right moment, but also about choosing the right moment to remain inactive. Bruce Lee demonstrated that knowing when to hold back can prevent unnecessary escalation, preserve opportunities for deeper understanding, and safeguard the long-term vision of one's life. Each restrained decision is a strategic act, revealing intelligence and foresight that often goes unnoticed but carries lasting significance. Legacy is also a reflection of consistency in values. Bruce Lee's repeated practice of restraint, observation, and ethical decision-making created a coherent philosophy that transcended individual events. The moments he chose not to engage were just as significant as the moments he did, forming a pattern of disciplined, conscious choice. This consistency reinforces trust, respect, and admiration in the eyes of others, ensuring that influence extends beyond immediate actions to long-term inspiration. Bruce Lee's legacy, built in unseen choices, underscores a universal lesson. What we choose not to do can be as important as what we choose to do. Life is full of moments where action is possible but unnecessary. The wisdom to discern these moments requires courage, intelligence, and ethical awareness. Bruce Lee's example teaches that mastery, integrity, and influence are deeply entwined with the restraint exercised in these unseen moments. By prioritizing judgment over impulse, clarity over spectacle, and principle over recognition, he forged a legacy that continues to inspire long after the public eye has moved on. The fight Bruce Lee chose not to engage in was not a loss, nor a missed opportunity. It was an investment in a philosophy that valued awareness, restraint, and wisdom above spectacle. It demonstrates that legacy is not only built in triumphs and visible accomplishments, but also in silent, deliberate choices that reveal character, intellect, and foresight. The power of his legacy lies in both the actions he took and the countless decisions he deliberately withheld, showing the world that true mastery transcends visibility, and greatness is often quiet, unseen, and profoundly influential. The significance of this day is not measured by the fight that occurred, but by the one that did not. Bruce Lee walked away, not because he lacked skill or confidence, but because he understood that the greatest demonstrations of power are sometimes invisible. Mastery is revealed through awareness, discipline, and the wisdom to choose the appropriate course of action, even when it defies expectations. This moment, hidden from the world, exemplifies a profound truth. Sometimes the strongest, most courageous act is choosing not to fight at all. And in that silence, a lesson endures far longer than any strike could.